and today's going to be all about kombucha. So I've been making kombucha for 8 years now, and I'm going to show you how I do it step by step. Now, a good book, a resource book to get is called the Big Book of Kombucha. Now, this is how I learned how to make it, was through this book. I wasn't much into internet stuff back then, so I got this book, and this really helped me out. It shows the history of kombucha, the benefits, recipes, how to make your own scoby if you wanted to. It's just very informative, so it's a good idea to buy this book. Anywho, I have my kombucha on dormancy, and I do a continuous brew kombucha. Now you can do a one-time batch, which is meaning that you just put it in the refrigerator. I do continuous brew, so I leave it on the counter. The difference is everything's the same, except that I let mine continuously ferment. So right when I decant, which it means to take it out. Decanting means to take your stuff out and jar it up, okay? Now when I get done decanting, I automatically put my tea and sugars back in and let it start doing its fermentation. Now, one-time ones, you just decant, put it in the fridge, and then when you're ready to do it again, you take it out and then start that process up. But everything else is exactly the same. In addition to being a great healthy drink, kombucha can be a great soda replacement. It has a carbonation factor that we all love in soda. And you can also duplicate those flavors in a second ferment. And I'll be going over that in part 2 of how to make kombucha. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about kombucha before we get started. So kombucha is a beneficial bacteria, and it is a great probiotic. It helps balance your body, the homeostasis of your gut bacteria. And it will assist in breaking foods down, help your immune system, overall help like your digestion. For example, I had a problem with, I think it was my gallbladder. It was just acting up, and that's the reason why I started taking kombucha, because it really just helped my digestive system. I was getting like heartburn and stuff, and it helped me get rid of that. I don't have the heartburn anymore. I don't have like the gallbladder spasms I was getting. It was just really, it was a painful thing, and I was young. I didn't understand what was going on. It was probably just my balance in my body. And so that was about the beginning of my health journey here. So anywho, it will help with your digestive issues. So it just doesn't hurt to try. You know, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a physician. I'm not advising you to just take kombucha and all your problems will go away, but it really does help. So you make your own decisions and, you know, do your research and all that jazz. You know what I mean? Along with being great for your digestion, it's high in vitamins like B and C and great antioxidant. So kombucha is a fermentation from black tea and sugar, and it's a combination of bacteria and yeast. Now, when you ferment this, it has something called a scoby. This is a scoby. This is called my scoby hotel. So what you do, because sometimes fruit flies love your ferments, right? Well, you never know if your scoby in your original ferment is going to die or get taken over by dang fruit flies, right? So they advise to have a scoby hotel, and you just put spare ones in here, and they stay. Like, they've been in here for years. They stay good forever, and I just feed it occasionally with some tea and sugar. Now, the symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, acronym SCOBY, forms, and it forms, all vinegars will form one of these, basically, by the way. So I'll show you one. My hands are clean. So this has been in here for a long time. See how thick it is? It smells really good. This is called a scoby. Now, you'll see every time you make a new batch of kombucha, you put this back in your batch. And you'll see a new layer grow on top of the old layer. So you'll have different layers, like here's another one, thin layers growing on top of them like little pancake layers. Every single time you make a new batch, a new scoby is going to grow. I disturbed this, right? So now I'm also going to feed it a little bit. Now a new scoby will grow on top. So I just put a jar on it, and this stays in my cupboard, nice and secure for if I ever need to use a scoby to redo one that I've lost somehow. And so I just will put that aside, but that is what a scoby looks like. So kombucha is something that you can just sit on your counter and basically forget about. And like mine is in dormancy right now. And dormancy is just leaving it. And I don't even put it in the refrigerator. I just leave it on my counter and it's just fine. It's not going to die unless it's like gets heated up really, really hot. Like you can't, it's best like anything over like 100 degrees is probably going to kill it. But I live in California. And I don't run my air conditioner in my house. It's just too much money here. So I got myself a swamp cooler and we run that, but it still gets really hot in here and everything is just fine. You just don't want it like in direct sunlight, and you know, anything over 100 is probably gonna kill it. So that being said, you can also put it in the refrigerator. Some people like to put it in the refrigerator, but mine's just always stayed on the counter and been just fine. Okay, so we're gonna get to making this and I'm gonna show you what I have going on. Okie dokie. So you're gonna get something that looks like this in the mail, or a little piece of it when you order it if you're not making your own. Okay, you're gonna get, to start off with, I wouldn't start off with a gallon. You're not gonna start off with what you get in the mail. They're gonna probably give you a tiny piece of this, like a sliver. They're gonna give you a little sliver. And just barely any starter kombucha. So I would start off with a pint, okay, just to get it going real good, because you start it with a gallon, it just might not be enough. So we're gonna get a pint jar and I'm gonna show you what to do when you start it with a pint. Okay, so when you first get your little starter kombucha in the mail, because I heard people complain, and I know that you're going to get, if you order it, you're just going to get a little piece. Unless you get lucky and get a big one. But even so, you're going to put your little piece that they give you, I'm going to tear it off. It's probably going to even be smaller than that. You're going to put this in your quart jar. Okay? And now, a quart is really, you know, it's a lot. There's 4 quarts in a gallon, right? So in a gallon, you want to do 1 cup of sugar. Now you just would reduce that. I would probably just put, let's just say a 1/4 to a 1/3, okay, of sugar in here. But you're gonna make your strong tea, okay? And I'm gonna show you how to do that. After you put your little sliver in your quart jar, you're gonna, and you put your little bit of starter fluid in there that it came with, and it's gonna probably be a fraction of this. Let's say they're gonna give you like maybe this much. So this is what you're gonna get in the mail probably, just that little bit. That's what I'm saying, it's not gonna be enough for a gallon. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna make your first batch of tea. You're gonna make your tea strong. You don't want, it doesn't matter if how strong it is really. It's just how, you don't want it weak. You don't want a weak tea. So I do combinations. Now this is there's several different types of black tea. But English tea, if it says English tea, that's black tea, okay? So you can use this. So I would put, like, if you're doing bags, do 3 bags, okay? Actually, 2, you can do it with 2, okay? 2 bags will make a strong enough tea for this. But to be on the safe side, you can do 3, but 2 is good enough, I say. You're gonna brew 2 tea bags, put it in your teapot, okay? And you're gonna boil it. Just boil it in a cup of water, okay? So I'm gonna do this for you real fast. We'll boil some tea bags. Now, alternatively, you don't need tea bags. I use this as well. So I'll do a combination. So I have this, you know, any black tea, English tea, you know, it's breakfast tea. Those are all your, like, you just want a strong tea. You can use Lipton, I'm sure. You know, Lipton tea bags are probably, you just want to make sure you put enough bags in there, right? So just do, as long as it's tea, you're good to go. And so you can put it in this little thing, put like a scoop, a couple scoops in here. So if you have loose tea, you can do that. Just do a couple scoops. I would do 3, like this is a 1 teaspoon. I did 3 teaspoons in here. That would be good for a quart, okay? So, and you can do a combination. You can do 3 teaspoons in a tea bag. Or 2 teaspoons in a tea bag, you know? So, but, I mean, we're just doing a quart. You just want to make sure it's strong enough. Because this is just, you're not going to drink this. You're just trying to make your starter strong enough to make a gallon. That's the goal here. All right, so, you know, I'm not much for measurements. I just do things by, you know, sight and feel, but I'm going to try my best to give you measurements on this. So we're dealing with a quart here. And this is what you're probably going to get in the mail. And you're going to start it in the quart. Now, we're going to fill half of this with water because your concentrated tea that you just made needs to be diluted. So we boiled a couple bags of tea in a cup of water, and we're letting it cool down a bit because you can't put don't put your hot tea directly on your stuff. You're going to kill it. Remember, it can't be, it can sustain all types of weather, but it can't sustain cooking. So don't try to cook your cultures here. Then you're going to, after you let your tea cool down a bit, you want to add your sugar while it's still warm or hot, okay? So that way it melts in. But then we're gonna fill this half with water, and then we're gonna put the rest with tea. We're gonna pour it in our quart jar, okay? And I say to pour the water in first before you add your tea because it helps protect your vinegar from if you accidentally add it when it's just a little too hot. So this way it's, you know, keeps it from shock anyways. So we're, you know, it's not exactly half with water. You don't want too much water. So I don't know, what is that? Usually these things have measurements on it. So, you know, a third full, I guess. Then we're going to put the rest with our tea. And I'm going to get the tea right now and add the sugar. Alright, so we got everything set up here. I'm ready to go. And we got our tea. Now, you don't want to pour hot tea on your scoby or your kombucha because it'll just kill everything. Remember, you can't have anything that'll be cooking it. So we're gonna fish out our tea bags and then add sugar. And we're gonna add, while it's still hot, we're gonna add, for a quart jar, we're gonna do about a heaping 1/3 cup of sugar in there. And you can do more, just don't do less, right? But the more sugar you put in, the longer it's gonna take. So 1/3 is probably perfect for a quart jar. Okay, and so after you pour that in, you're gonna let your tea cool down until it's like room temperature, and then you're gonna add it to your quart jar. And so I'll be doing that right now. So we have our tea. I decanted out of the tea kettle and put it in here, ready to add to our quart jar of your very first kombucha. Okay, so you have your starter with a little bit of water, and then you're gonna add your tea and sugar mixture, and it's cooled down to room temperature, and we're gonna fill the jar up. Fill it up just like that. You know, maybe leave a little bit, good couple inches from the top, because what happens when you start forming, when your scobies get bigger and they start forming, they tend to like puff up and they like crawl out, so you want enough room for them to like puff up. But your first one, I don't think that's gonna happen. So, but that's about good right there. You can add, we'll just add a little bit more. Then you're gonna cover it with your cloth and your rubber band, so no fruit flies can get to it, and you're gonna let it sit on your counter because it's your first batch. I would do 2 weeks, okay? 2 weeks, let it sit on your counter, and then you're gonna see a little thin SCOBY grow on the top. All right, so you have your tea in your jar now. It's good to go. You had it sit there for 2 weeks. You have a SCOBY that formed on top, and it's tastes sour, right? Or it doesn't even have to taste sour. As long as you have a new SCOBY formed on top in 2 weeks, you're good to start your second one, okay? So your second one's gonna be a gallon jar. Let's pretend this is empty, and you're gonna pour this into your gallon jar. Then you're gonna boil your water and tea and do your mixture. You're gonna do about, this time we're gonna do 2 or 3 cups of water. You're gonna do 4 tea bags per gallon, okay? Then you're gonna boil your tea bags in your cup of water. Then you're gonna add 1 cup of sugar per gallon. When it cools down, you're gonna pour your tea into your gallon jar, and then you're gonna top it off with water. You let that sit on your counter between 7 to 2 weeks, 7 days to 2 weeks. Once you see a SCOBY forming on top, that's when you can start tasting it, and you can get a straw, put your finger, dip it in, put your finger on top to lock in the fluid, and taste it. Now, every time you taste it, if it's too sweet, then you let it keep on going. If it's in between, like a sour and a sweet, that's perfect. And then that's when we do step 2. Step 2 is decanting and flavoring. So today, you've only seen me do the step 1 and then decant for renewing my kombucha. But then we're gonna do a part 2 on flavoring. So after mine and yours gets done doing its thing, and then it tastes good and it's ready to decant, we're gonna do a second fermentation. Now this is where you would add your flavors. Like you can add I like to do hibiscus and other things, but we'll get to that. So you're gonna add flavors and maybe a little bit more sugar, and this is where you create the carbonation, the air bubbles. And so, but we will get to the second stage of decanting and your second ferment in part 2. Part 1 is just about getting it started. So I explained to you how to get it started from a quart, when you very first get your little tiny SCOBY and your starter fluid, how to keep back your starter fluid. You don't keep back on this one, you just pour the whole thing in. But on the gallon, now, here's what you do. Let's pretend you added your 1 cup of sugar, your tea, let it, your strong tea, you let it sit here for 7 to 14 days, depending on your taste, at least 7 days. And the heat in the house is a factor. So if your house is warmer, it's going to ferment faster. But taste it, and you want it like, you know, normally between a little sweet and a little sour. Now if it gets too sour, it's still, you can still save it. You're just going to have to add a little bit extra sweetness when you do a second ferment. But you know, if it's too sweet, some people, you might want to try it as sweeter because your taste buds aren't used to it, and your kids might not like it either. And the longer it goes, the better it is for you. But if to get used to it, you might need it at that sweeter point, and that's okay. You'll decant it and flavor it, or just drink it as is. You don't have to do a second ferment. You can just drink it as it is. But if you're going to drink it when it's a little semi-sweet, what happens is your gut bacteria actually controls what you crave. So at first you might be like, ugh, it doesn't taste good. But the more you intake fermentation products, the more you get your gut bacteria growing, the more it's going to tell you you want it. You crave actually what your gut bacteria craves. So to start off with, to train your body and your gut bacteria to want your fermentations in your kombucha, you might want to start a little bit sweeter. But then you'll find yourself increasing to a more sour taste because your gut bacteria is like, I need the more fermented. So then you can just let it ferment longer, and then you're going to be wanting that more sourness of the kombucha. And it's really hard to even say what it tastes like. It doesn't taste like anything you can describe. It's just its own unique flavor. And the ones in the stores are just gross. I don't like them. I like my own. Okie dokie. So let's talk about, now you have the flavor right. You decanted for your second one, your second ferment, and now you need to replenish. So you can either put it in the fridge like this, like let's say it's decanted, and you put back, you saved. Remember, you have to save your starter. So let's say this is the decanted one. This is what it should look like. You keep your scoby. You have to keep your scoby in there, and then you have your starter fluid in. You can put it in the fridge and wait until you're ready to make a new one. Or you can do continuous brew, which is what I do, and I keep it on the counter, and then I start immediately my new one. And how you do that is you just start a new batch. You put back your starter, always save at least 2, I save at least 2 cups per gallon, minimum 1. And then you add your strong tea and sugar and let it sit for 7 to 10 days. You just do it over and over again. So 7 to 14 days, sorry. It's anywhere, it just depends on your taste, but usually it's not less than 7. But we're gonna get going, and I'm gonna show you how I do my bigger batches now. Okie dokie. So this is what my kombucha setup looks like. I keep it on my counter for my continuous brew, and I can drink from the spigot as well, or I could choose to decant it for a second ferment. So they are both 3-gallon crocks. These sit on my counter with a cheesecloth that has a string wrapped around it or a rubber band. And if you don't do that, for me, we have fruit flies that just are an issue if we don't do that, and they'll get in there and they will ruin your kombucha and your scoby, and they'll sit there, and I mean, it's happened to me one time, and it's just gross. They hatch eggs in the scoby, and it's just disgusting. Hence, for me, it's important to have this SCOBY hotel. I've only had to redo it a couple times, but it's just, I've learned my lesson, right? I used to keep just the lid on. Well, just the lid's not going to cut it. You're going to get fruit flies in there. Alright, so here is the top of my crock. Now, how I decant these is through the spigot. So, I like the spigot. And the spigot sometimes will get clogged with a little SCOBY, because SCOBY wants to block all air. Actually, that's what they do. They're like, oh, air's coming in, let's make a SCOBY. So there's SCOBY. They'll build up in these spigots. You just take them apart, take the SCOBY out, get a little pipe cleaner and get it in there, and you're all good. So this is the lid. And believe me, it's like it's getting air inside, but the SCOBY wants to block that. So look at beautiful inside, beautiful SCOBY. I've had this sitting here in dormancy for a year. It's been dormant for a year, and now it's about to get revamped. See how it covers, that SCOBY just covers every single bit? It's protected that starter kombucha, and now it's vinegar. That kombucha is vinegar, so we're going to decant it, and we're going to keep it for kombucha vinegar. But it's been protecting it, so now we're going to liven this sucker up. Let's go. So let's look at the second one. I got these Crocs on Amazon, and I'm not sure if you can get them now, but that's where I got them years ago. This one has little hairline cracks in it when I bought it, but I mean, it's still here 8 years later. And so this one also perfectly good in dormancy for over a year, and the SCOBY just takes over and seals everything. By the way, both Crocs were filled to the very top with kombucha. Over time, you know, evaporation occurs. So if you're going to do that and leave it on the counter with air circulation, see, that shows you there's air in here. Because there wouldn't be evaporation if there wasn't air. So you can keep this lid on and put your cheesecloth and be worried free that it's getting enough air. So when we decant these, we have to keep at least, because this is 3 gallons, right? So I'm going to keep 3 or 4 cups each of the starter that's in there, because you need at least a cup per gallon. Okay, so I mean, mine's really strong. So if you're just getting started, I mean, you're probably gonna get your SCOBY from the mail. I made mine, and in the book of kombucha, it tells you briefly on how to do that with store-bought kombucha. So, but yeah, I made mine. I never bought mine. But so what you have to do with your new SCOBY, it will come with the starter fluid, and you're going to use that starter fluid and create your kombucha. So as I decant mine, I'm going to keep mine back some. So you hold back, for me, I hold back a cup per gallon. So okay, so we're going to be decanting these ones right here. Now, because mine's been in dormancy, I have to unscrew the top because the SCOBY grows inside, blocking all air. So you take that right here, right? So you take that out, and then you're gonna fish out the SCOBY that's most likely inside. So yeah, there's a little bit of SCOBY here. I have this pipe cleaner also. You can put that up there and look at, oh, there's the SCOBY. There's a big old SCOBY right there. And that's its job. It's doing its job, blocking the air, preserving it from bugs and stuff. So, and then we'll decant that one. Now there's not much vinegar in this one, so I already got a little bit out. I think this is the amount that I got out before I did that, and we're just gonna leave that there. And then, because most of the liquid evaporated. So, and then we're going to decant this one. Now this one, see how it barely dribbles. It's barely dribbling. That's because there's a SCOBY inside blocking that. Now, it's hard to undo these because the SCOBY's doing its job, trying to keep air from the kombucha that's dormant inside. So you unscrew that, and we're gonna pop that open. Look at the SCOBY just up in there. See, this one has a lot more vinegar in it than the other one did. I think the other one's SCOBY's just bigger. Here. And see, this plastic cover protects the spring. Alright, we gotta turn this off. Our jar's getting full. Alright, so there's that. Alright, so here's the inside. And look at this. We're going to take this scoby out. This is a big giant scoby we got going on here. And so, I don't know if you can see. Well, it's been dormant for a while, so it's sealed up all the layers. But usually, they have the layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of all the different batches I've made. So each batch will have a thin layer. You can see the top, just a thin layer that grows, and they all attach. Now this is where they live. So this one looks nice and healthy. And we're going to put it aside in a container. And then, oh, I have a couple of just thin layers here, probably older ones, inside. And we're going to pop these probably in the Scoby Hotel. So here is the Scoby Hotel. And we're going to put it right in here. Okay? Right in that Scoby Hotel. We're going to put it on top of the other one. Or just under. I'm going to put it under the other one. There. I put it under the original one. So we have an extra one there. And I don't think I'm going to save from the other one. Okay. So the Scoby looks really nice and healthy. I don't think I need to trim it at all. And we'll come back. Alright, so we got our crock all cleaned out and ready to go. We're putting our big Scoby back in. Sometimes I cut these down, but this is a good size for 3 gallons. So I'm going to keep that back in there, and it looks nice and clean. And then we're going to, I have 2 quarts of starter, which is 8 cups. And we're going to pour half of this back in there because I need the other half for my other 3 quarts. And then whatever extra I have them, toss it in there. More doesn't hurt, it's the less. So you're going to, when you're doing gallons at least, you want really strong starter and at least a cup or more of your starter to be held back to restart the new one. So we're going to pour this in. And do it slowly because this thing splashes. So pour this in. And I got about half of it in there. Alright, so I'll do a little bit more. There. And what it's covered, I don't know if you can't see, but the liquid has covered the whole entire top, so that's good. And we're going to put the lid back on for now so we don't get any of those fruit flies or anything in there, any contaminants. Put that on, okay? I'm going to set this one aside while I do the other one. Alright, so we got the Scoby out of this one, and it looks really nice. This is the top Scoby, so you want to keep your top Scoby. So this has all the layers just stuck together because it's been there so long. But we're going to put this aside. We're going to wash the bottom off because it has tea remnants, little tea things. Oh, let's put this aside. And then on the bottom of that, I had one of the layers that popped off. So this is a smaller layer that was underneath it. We're going to put that one aside. And then also it has another, and this one's older, so we're going to just go ahead. This is an older one. I'll probably feed this one to the chickens. It's really good for your animals too. People make face masks out of this stuff, and I don't know, I haven't done that, but people actually will eat it. I don't eat it. But I'm going to feed this to the chickens, and they're going to love it. Because I already have enough put back up in my Scoby Hotel. So, I'll put this one aside too. Alright, so we got this one washed out real well. Let me move this to the side. And we're going to put this over here so we can see it better. We're going to add this back inside. You know, I didn't wash the bottom of it. Let me wash the bottom of it real fast. Okay, we're going to put it back inside. I washed it real good. Sometimes you'll have like stringy things, and that's fine. But I don't have that. It's been See, the layers have filled up real well. So we're gonna put it back in here, and we're gonna add our vinegar or starter back in. Have to do it slow because this thing leaks. We're gonna add most of this back in. Yeah, that's good. We're gonna add that much back in. All right, so we have our tea we're gonna do 3 gallons at a time now because that's how I make it. So I'm gonna do 4 tea bags per gallon or 4 teaspoons per gallon. I'm gonna do a combo of both. I like to do both, 2 different types of teas. So we got, let me get out of here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 of this tea. And we're going to do 4 more. And we're going to do 4 teaspoons of loose leaf tea. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're doing heaping teaspoons. There. And then if you spill, make sure you get those because this is gold right now, right? Okay, we're going to add this and then we're going to bring it to a boil and let that steep and just fill your kettle up, okay? You don't need to measure when you're dealing in bulk. So just fill your kettle up because we're doing 3 gallons. All right, so we got our tea off the stove for a 3-gallon crock that we're gonna do. And I'm gonna fish out the tea bags and we're gonna add our sugar before it cools down all the way. That way it blends well. And then I have some ice cubes in here. I like to use ice cubes to help speed the process of cooling down because remember, you don't want to add hot liquid onto your starter and your scoby. It'll just not be very good. It'll kill it and then you won't have kombucha anymore. But that's why you have a SCOBY hotel. So after you get your first batches going, you know, you want to make quite a few batches so you get several layers. And then after that, that's when you would take a few layers off the bottom ones and put those in another jar called a SCOBY hotel and a little bit of the liquid, the starter liquid, and some fresh, a little bit of, you know, the feed that you're giving it, and put it in your cupboard. And it'll stay good for emergencies when you need it, like if you have a fruit fly infestation, or because that's happened, or if it, like you just like for some reason, I've never had this problem, like mold doesn't grow on this stuff, but if for some reason if it just didn't work out and it got moldy, which means if it gets moldy like bad, you did not have a strong enough vinegar. So there are times where a little bit like a regular like mold might grow on top, and you have a really great vinegar though, you know it's strong, just cut that off and you're good. You pour that vinegar on top and it's gonna die. Okay, sometimes that happens in spots and you're fine just taking it off because you know you have a strong vinegar. But you got a crap load of mold all over it, then you gotta just throw it all away. But a little like circular spots here and there, because of humidity or something out of your control, that's fine. You know you have a strong vinegar and you just cut it off and the vinegar's gonna, you know, kill the rest and not let anything happen. Alright, so we're gonna add 1 cup of sugar per gallon. So I'm going to put 3 cups of sugar in here. I have my sugar container off to the side and let's just do that. Alright, so we're gonna pour 1 cup and grab another, and you can do heaping cups. 2 cups, 3 cups. And because it's been a while for mine, mine's been dormant for a bit, I'm going to add just an extra to grow on. Just a little bit, not quite full. 1 to grow on, right? And we stir that in. And so let's pour this in the ice. And try to get that cooled down as fast as we can because I'm impatient. There's times where, like when I make the second 3 gallons, I'll just let it sit at room temperature. But right now I just want to get the first one going. And you'll see in here a little bit of sugar. In here, just take some water, rinse it out, and pour. Because you want to get all that sugar out of the kettle. Alright, so we have our tea cooled down, and we're going to add it to our starter we set back and our SCOBY that's in here. So let's add it in. And then you're going to fill up the rest of it with water. And leave about this much space for your SCOBY to puff up and down, because that's what it does. So that's what it looks like, and that's about how much space there is. Alright, so you got your lid on. Okay, you're putting your lid on, and before you do that, you want to check inside. Make sure the coast is clear. You don't want 1 single fruit fly in there. Because what happens is you get 1 little fruit fly in there and it's done for. The whole batch is ruined because you're going to open it up to a bunch of grossness and fruits fly all over your stuff and it's ruined. So you've got to make sure that's that. And that's why I add extra cover and put a cheesecloth on top of this lid. So, and alternatively, if you're doing like a gallon jar, like this is my pickle jar, I'll leave it on the counter. If you're doing that, you could just leave your lug nut like loosely on top and put a cloth over it as well. But you're good to go. I have vinegars with just the cloth and the rubber band. But this, it doesn't have a lip like this. See, this has a lip where you can securely put that rubber band on. I found just with the cheesecloth, because it has no lip, those fruit flies will get in. So I have to have the lid on as well. And there's no like airtight seal, so it's good. Alright, so this, I'm going to add my cheesecloth, or this is my dish towel. Put it on top. And just lightly put it on top of the whole thing. And then I cover it up with, I have strings I tie, and tie it, this is a string I have to tie around it, and that should be good for me anyhow. See, there, now I don't think fruit fly is going to get in that. It's secure. So that's how you're going to make kombucha, and you just do it over and over again every time you make it, and that's how you do a continuous batch. I leave mine on the counter, and in 7 days we're going to decant it, and I want to do a part 2 on how to decant and do a second fermentation when this batch is ready. Alright, well thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe now. Talk to y'all later.